Hello, TBR Nation. This is Amber Kim from the Perfect RIA. Thank you for joining me on today's Follow-Up Friday. Now, before we get into today's recap, if you're enjoying our episodes, we'd love for you to give us 5 stars wherever you listen to our podcast and make sure that you're subscribing so you don't miss an episode. On Monday, Matt and Micah were talking about prospects and why on earth they say no. This is such a huge topic because the prospect process is one of the most important things and one of the most difficult parts of a practice. Now, before they got into this, the guys took some time to chat about goals. Yes, those goals that you shouldn't be setting now, but you should already know and be ready to crush now. So if you don't have your goals set, they said pause, go set them, and make sure that you put this on your calendar for this coming year between September and November. And those goals can't be vague. They need to be very specific and not just aspirational. It's okay to have those aspirational goals, but you also need to focus on the things that you can do and translate that into action. Matt and Micah discussed having goals related to the number of clients you bring on. These are numbers that you can back into, leading to the number of prospects that you need to see to hit that number. In order to do this, you need to be looking at real numbers. And you get this by looking at the number of clients you actually brought on with names. Then look at the source from those clients, the total number of prospects, and even the number of prospects who called. From there, you can figure out, based on how many new clients you want to bring on, how many prospects do you need to meet with, and then find that time on your calendar. And by the way, these are numbers that your team needs to pull, and then you need to go through them to quality control. The guy said you need to focus your energy on where you're getting your new clients. Now, you might not know where the clients are going to come from. Micah said he'll have a guess and try 3 different things. So it could be referrals, COIs, seminars, webinars, content creation. But they said the one thing every advisor needs to do across the board is referrals. And the way to pick the other ones is where you're actually going to do the work. So if you hate podcasts, well, then don't put your energy into creating a podcast. But it's okay if none of them actually call to you. It takes work to be successful. And you also need to look at which activities are producing for you. That means, is the activity you're doing producing the results for you to achieve your goals? Pull your emotions out of it. And if you're losing people, look to see whether it's something that you can fix, or maybe it's just something that isn't right and you need to move on to something else. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to invent a new system. Look to those who are successful and take their process to use yourself. But understand that there are lots of things that can make a difference in whether a process is successful for you. Another point that the guys made, and that most advisors forget, is that almost every advisor looks and sounds the same. So you want to win the competition where a prospect realizes you've shown them more value and more information than anyone else. That's how you can set yourself apart from other advisors. Part of this is also looking at your meetings or presentations and critiquing them. But that doesn't mean that you're looking at 100 different things to improve. You need to look for the one thing that you can improve and master. And then after that, you can work on one more thing so that you have one sticky change at a time in your prospect process. You also want to look at how are you helping prospects make an educated and informed decision, and how can you make this easier for them as a consumer? You want to make things simple and share what they can take action on. The people who can convey the most complex messages in the simplest way to where the prospect and client can relate to, those are the ones who the guys said are going to make an impact. They said complexity is a killer of the prospect process. The guys said you want to track when people are saying no and why did they say no? Or what do you suspect is the reason for that? When they're saying no, the value proposition is always off, but you need to track this to identify where you need to improve the process. Now, taking the funnel process that Matt and Micah talked about Monday, you want to have the process lined out where everyone knows what it is and then put your prospect stats on top to see where you're losing them. From there, you can see what adjustments and changes you need to make. This doesn't need to be a complicated system. Have your process and steps in a spreadsheet and then compare with when you stop hearing from prospects. Let's get into action items. Break down your process. It doesn't need to be elaborate, and look at where your conversion is with those steps. Look at where your clients come from. You want to know who your ideal client is and the source that they came from. That's where you want to spend your energy. And Backstage Pass and Invictus members, make sure that you're checking out our member resources on the prospect process. Lastly, we're going to be hosting a Nation Power Session in February on how to double your practice. Be on the lookout for more information on this soon. Now, before we continue, if you're looking for more resources or how to learn about the topics that Matt and Micah talk about, reach out to our team at lifestyle@theperfectria.com for more information. On Wednesday, Matt was joined by the Vice President of Marketing for our partner Belay, Amy Appleton, to share how you can use your virtual assistant with your marketing. So when you're wanting to start doing this, Amy said the first thing you need to do is to explain what you're currently doing. So are you currently doing social media or newsletter? What are those current things and places that you're sharing content already? This is a starting point where someone can take things off your plate. A reminder with marketing content, you have to be consistent with what you're doing. So where you can use that assistant is with taking what you're already doing and repurposing that content. They can take the content you already have and distribute it across different channels. But Amy reminded that when you're doing this and marketing, that it's a marathon and not a sprint, and it requires consistency. Amy said there's so many things that you can do in marketing, and you can use your assistant to research what the options are and share what it would take and create a plan for different areas that you could potentially put your energy in. Let someone else do that heavy lifting for you. Another thing that an assistant can help with is tracking and looking at the metrics. And this is where you want to go in and review to see where things are working. Also, any coordination and project management is great for a virtual assistant to get into and make sure that things are going according to plan. Amy said that an assistant superpower is that attention to detail, and they can help carry things through. That can help free you up so that you can do the things that are your superpower. Amy said with research and even with COIs, your assistant can start to look into additional areas that you can expand your outreach to. They're detectives in this area, and they can also handle the follow-up as well. They can be that exceptional piece that can make things even better than what you could do on your own. And you need someone who has that attention to detail. Logistically, going over the marketing with your assistant can be a part of your one-on-one meetings and build this into your checkups. Amy said that it's a separate function, but it's also a business function and can go along with anything else that you're having your assistant do. Matt shared his pro tip on these meetings. Make sure that you're coming in with energy and excitement. For setting goals and tasks for things that your assistant can control, you want to focus on the activities they can do and what do they learn from those. Amy said over time, you learn and the results will get better. So focus on the activity first, especially if you're doing something for the first time. Let's get into action items. Text RIA to 55123 to get Belay's guide on having a virtual assistant. Look at your marketing calendar and what you're already doing and document what that is. And know your client and what are the questions you need to ask to know what it is that you're supposed to be talking about. Think about all those questions that people ask you in their first encounter with them. Then answer those questions in your content because that's what people want to hear. And then lastly, Amy said repetition is good. People need to hear things over and over, and it needs to be a consistent message again and again. On Thursday, Jamie was talking about goal setting, but not yours, because as Matt and Micah mentioned on Monday, those should already be set, but instead with those younger people in your life and how to help them establish their goals and work towards them. She started goal setting with her son when he was about 6, and it was just little things like, what do you want to learn? She said it's about developing the skill set for setting those short and long-term goals. Jamie made a big point, which is that the number one rule of goal setting is that you can't set someone else's goals for them, which is hard. So with a child, they get to articulate their goal and you can help them articulate it, but they have to want that goal for themselves. And this applies to adults too. People need to feel a connection to their goals. So if you set a goal for someone else, they might feel disassociated with it and then see it more as an obstacle and feel resentful. Jamie also recommends that you set 3 and no more than 5 goals, because the more goals that you have, the harder it is to achieve them. Jamie then shared how this looked for her family and her son's friends this year, who she wanted to include in this goal setting session. Now, the reason she invited his friends is because you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And whoever that is, both personally and professionally, is who you're most likely to become. So whoever you surround yourself with is how you govern your life. And she shared a reminder that as parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles with kids, you want to steward your kids in the right direction. But then you'll also tell them to make their own decisions and choices. But she said, remember, kids still need our guidance and they need to know how to navigate things. So by having her son's friends involved, it was now either going to empower his friends to set goals and know how to achieve them, or her son would be able to filter out that those people weren't his tribe. So for the session itself, here's how she recommends that you set this up. She said, make it fun. So she did foam boards and glue, markers, and old magazines. And she said to help people articulate goals, they first need a roadmap in front of them. She starts with a 5-year vision, then 3-year, and then 1 year. Jamie said if someone is having a hard time visualizing 5 years, then just start with that 1 year. You want them to jot everything down on a scratch paper. Then on the foam board, break out the 5, 3, and 1 into columns and start with the money goal because that's easier to measure and count. Then the next is experiences. And she said, you want to make sure that you balance having experiences with working. And then the last is education. And that can be personal or professional development. And it's what you're curious about. The second stage is where you can help the kids with. Have them get rid of about 75% of the ideas and focus on how long it would take to achieve those goals. And then they can rank which goals are the most important to them. Now, remember, it's 3 to 5 max. Also, these are things that need to be checked in throughout the year. And that check-in could be dinner or especially with younger kids starting with some type of activity. Once they have the goals, then you need to help them back into that goal. They need action steps and milestones and have deadlines for when things need to be done and review those at that check-in and show them what they're on target for. Now, Jamie said that she doesn't set goals that they can't control. So to make sure to ask questions if they're wanting to set goals that are out of that control. She also recommends giving ranges. And this isn't to lower standards, but to give you a high and a low spectrum. So look at that first as you're filtering through the goals and then go through the action items and make sure that's put on everyone's schedule and put when everyone is holding each other accountable. And with kids, Jamie said they're really good at holding each other accountable. So to wrap up, what the purpose of this exercise is with kids is you're asking them to look at who they're surrounded by. You're giving them a structure to focus their goals. You're giving them strategy and you're giving them a level of accountability to push others towards excellence while also pushing themselves. Let's get into action items. Give us 5 stars so we can share this information with more people. And look at who in your life isn't setting goals that you're empowered to help. Self-evaluate, and if you can't lead that conversation for others, find someone who can help. Before we go, TPR Nation, if you're ready to grow and dramatically impact your life and those around you and you want resources to help, reach out to us at lifestyle@theperfectria.com or you can visit us at theperfectria.com/grow. That wraps up this week's recap. Thank you for joining me, and please share this or any of our episodes with another advisor or team member who you think might benefit from listening. And until next time, happy planning.